Mark Levin here. After any presidential election, I take time to reevaluate my own financial investments. That's why I continue to invest in gold for help with my financial protection. When it comes to gold, I only trust Advantage Gold. They're a top gold company in America, and that's who I turn to for my own gold purchases. Call them now at 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit. And see if you qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. And tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
I was deeply moved by the reception that we got, the substantive things that we discussed, making sure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon.
Woo! What a week. What a week. What a week we have had. And that man right there, by the way, Bibi, meeting with House Speaker Mike Johnson earlier today, coming out of that. Things are lining up, and it's just so exciting day by day to see the progress that's being made. But speaking of that man, speaking of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he's going to be with the guy that you tuned in to listen to tomorrow night. The whole hour, Life, Liberty, Levin, Fox News Channel, 8 p.m. Eastern. It is Mark with Bibi. So lock and load. Make sure you watch live. Always set it up on your DVR. Never miss an episode. Brian Mudd here with you. And it's a pleasure to be here with you again. And I got to tell you, it is hard not to feel good or maybe great. I mean, as we're making America great again, it's kind of hard not to feel great again as this is starting to come together. I mean, yes, constant challenges around every turn, legal challenges, Democrats that are losing their minds, which is actually, in some ways, it can be frustrating because of like some of the legal stuff that goes on that slows up the Trump agenda. But on the other hand, it is just absolutely hilarious. But what a week. What a week for Trump policy. I want to give you an idea. I was trying to just piece this whole thing together because I remember last weekend, like, wow, we're not even at Monday yet. And look what's already happening here. Like, the whole thing with the Panama Canal, for example, that was happening before we even got to Monday. Yeah, the tariffs, that. So I'm just going to walk you through some stuff. And I was kind of thinking, like, we need to get Billy Joel back in the saddle. We need every single week of the Trump presidency, we need him to break out a new version of We Didn't Start the Fire, just get through it. Which, by the way, I mentioned that earlier today, and I had somebody that told me, hey, Weezer did a version of that like a few years ago. That's unfortunate. That probably did not, I'm not familiar with it, probably did not work out well, is all I'm thinking. I remember Buddy Holly, that was a pretty good. Otherwise, Weezer, not so much. Billy Joel? Yes. Give me Billy Joel. So, here's the deal. Mentioned that we didn't have to wait until Monday for there to be some major news. We did start with the tariffs that were set to be imposed by Tuesday on Canada, China, and Mexico, following those executive orders that were signed by Trump on Saturday. It was by Sunday, the Secretary of State Marco Rubio began his Central American tour to spread Trump policy throughout the region. It was then that we learned President Trump secured his first major foreign policy win, as the president of Panama announced following that meeting with Rubio that Panama would, in fact, backtrack on its deal with China. It would sever ties with the Chicoms, just as Trump demanded. Or, we'll just take the Panama Canal back because, that Jimmy Carter guy, may he rest in peace, low IQ kind of guy, not very smart. That kind of thing. So anyway, no occupation needed. No bombs with Chicoms. All it ended up costing the United States to get China out of operations in the Panama Canal was what? I mean, the cost of Rubio's flight, By Monday morning, the president of Mexico and the ever effeminate prime minister of Canada said, "Oh no." That's my Justin Trudeau there. And just so you have the freak out going on there about the prospect of getting tagged with tariffs. And why? Well, let's see. Because Mexico is 4 times more reliant on us for trade than we are them. Canada, even more so. Canada needs us 4.5 times more. In fact, I mean, really, when you take a look at the whole span of their economy, there are a couple different things. Literally 77% of what Canada exports comes to the United States. Yeah, I mean, I referenced this last night. It really would just be such a better deal for Canada if they were the 51st state. I'm not angling for that. Trump says things like that politically. It's not what we need, but yeah, I mean, it's like 77% of anything you do outside of your country is us anyway. I mean, really? So yeah, they both caved, right? They gave President Trump exactly what he wanted on both of our borders. In return, what did Trump do? Signed 2 executive orders pausing the imposition of tariffs on them for at least 30 days. And why the pause for 30 days? Well, of course, to provide both countries with the opportunity to prove that they're serious, that they really are going to do what they said, that they're really going to change their ways. And with those announcements, Trump achieved his second and third major foreign policy wins of the week. We're still on Monday. Wins that did not cost us a thing. But it was also on Monday that President Trump signed an executive order seeking to establish a sovereign wealth fund for the purpose, according to Trump, to promote fiscal sustainability, to lessen the burden of taxes on American families, small businesses, to establish economic security for future generations, and promote United States economic and strategic leadership internationally. Now, Trump has suggested, because people are like, where's the money going to come from that? He's like, well, the tariffs. It'll come from the tariffs. The tariffs will fund the fund. And by the way, OMB has 90 days to act on that. But Trump wasn't done. It was also on Monday that Trump signed an executive order aimed at withdrawing the U.S., our funding, from and participation with 3 UN organizations. Yeah, the UN Human Rights Council. Now, he knocked us out of that the first time around. That was the one UN organization that Trump, nixed the financial contributions to. But he did that again after Biden gave him money. But he also said UNESCO, the UN Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, will not be funding that. And the one that just really, I'm like, seriously? The UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East. Now, I don't know if you remember, but recall how there were some UN employees that were found to be in league with Hamas after October 7th? We were still freaking funding that organization. No conscience. Joe Biden, could be that he just wasn't conscious, but unreal. We're still on Monday. It was also on Monday that Elon Musk and Team Doge announced that USAID was done. As close to Doge can do to making it done. So yes, USAID, in the words of Musk and making the announcement on behalf of the president, he said the agency was beyond repair. And I thought about that. When Musk said USAID is beyond repair, this is a man who repairs space junk. Okay, so just want you to think about this for a moment. If you're trying to figure out, just how backwards and backcrap crazy are the people at slinging your money around to things like, Peruvian tranny comic superbook heroes, because that really was the thing that we funded, by the way. But just how out to lunch with these people? These people are so far gone that a man that can repair space junk can't repair this thing. Beyond repair. Elon said the agency wasn't an apple with a worm in it, but rather a ball of worms. USAID is a ball of worms. I like that. And the ball was about 10,000 deep. And so A lot of untangling of those worms. By midnight tonight, should only be a few hundred of them left. So, yeah. That ball worms was the one responsible for funding that Peruvian tranny comic book for things like the tranny opera in Colombia, the pay-for-play money laundering scheme with Politico, which they're still, I mean, in the grand, all kidding aside, on some of the ridiculousness here, the whole Politico thing, I mean, you want to talk about true scandals, and we could spend, a whole show just diving into the view of the possible here with Politico, but it is crystal clear that Politico was bought and paid for in a corruption and money laundering scheme. It is right there. And the initial numbers that were being floated, $8 million, it's not. And public records show over $30 million that flowed to Politico. So, again, all fun. But we're still on Monday. Rubio's second stop on his Central American tour, that took him to El Salvador. And in El Salvador, a couple things happened. He met with a president who's far more manly than Justin Trudeau. Guy looks good in his shirt. You got to give him that. He obviously likes taking pictures, photogenic, everything else. El Salvadorian president. Good. Everything Justin Trudeau is not. He said that he would take on the U.S.'s criminal illegal alien deportees for a fee. And in fact, even offered to take on American criminals, too. So that is not exactly a constitutional thing for us to do. Compelling, but probably can't do that. But anyway, again, all of that happened by the end of the day on Monday. So by Tuesday, the 10% additional Chinese tariff did go into place as China decided to dig in with a smattering of retaliatory tariffs of their own that they say will take effect this upcoming Monday. But that's interesting for a couple reasons. Notably, they had a week delay before they were going to impose tariffs. Also suggests that China wants to strike a deal. So stay tuned for news. Could be something we hear about before Monday on that. And so, yeah, you get to Tuesday. And Tuesday proved to be another bombshell day. An absolute bombshell day. And I'll pick up there next. I'm Brian Mudd, in for the great one.
Mudd Levin.
Did you see what the Federal Reserve did literally days after President Trump's victory? It's lowered interest rates by a quarter. You know why it did that? It's worried about the economy. It's worried about the fact that jobs aren't being created. We're seeing all kinds of shifts in our portfolios, and it's important to stay aware. That's why I'm urging everyone to diversify and consider gold as one of your financial shields. Now, gold has weathered every kind of economic downturn throughout history. I want you to call Advantage Gold. They're the best of the best, folks. I've dealt with all of them. They're the best. They're my gold company. 1-800-900-8000. Get a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. I recommend Advantage Gold to anyone who's serious about protecting their wealth, and that's you. Call 800-900-8000 for your free gold investment kit, and you could even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be very happy with them. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
Japan will soon begin importing historic new shipments of clean American liquefied natural gas in record numbers.
Oh, by the way, yeah, the bilateral meeting with the Japanese prime minister, and we're going to have a record amount of natural gas going to Japan. Another deal done, more money that will end up flowing into this country, and better situation for Japan. He points out the clean aspect of that, too. Everybody wins. Just every time you turn around, something new happening. Not tired of winning. Brian Mudd in for Mark Levin. Just walking you through what's happened this week. In the first segment, I got through Monday. It is unreal. We've never seen anything like this administration. Let's talk about what happened Tuesday. I mentioned it turned out to be another bombshell day. And one of the bombshells was a rhetorical one, still that one that we're waiting on. But it was when President Trump mentioned that he was in the process of drafting the executive order that would lay the groundwork to put an end to the Department of Education. I mean, something that just, I almost tear up at the thought. It makes me so, not sad at all. So proud, so happy. It might bring me to tears. Those guys, happy tears. Third hour of the show, we're going to talk about that. I've talked about it a lot over the years, including on this show. We're just going to talk about it, the Department of Ed needing to die. Walk you straight through the abject failure and the evil that is implicit in the Department of Education. How they have screwed this country 6 ways to Sunday over the past 44 plus years. So anyway, quoting Trump on this very exciting thing that he's getting ready to lay out the groundwork to try to put an end to the Department of Education. Trump said, "We spend more per pupil than any other country, and we're ranked at the bottom. I want to let the states take charge of schools." And so that executive order can't come too soon. It was also on Tuesday that the first flights from ICE deporting criminal illegal immigrants to Guantanamo Bay took place. Nothing like seeing those punks arrive at Gitmo. Tuesday was also the day that President Trump held bilateral meetings with none other than Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister with whom the great one will be interviewing again, 8 o'clock for the entire hour, Fox News Channel tomorrow. But Trump and Bibi, with Trump pledging continued support for all hostages to be released under the ceasefire deal, in addition to a rock-solid commitment to support Israel against all its enemies. And, of course, it was also in the presser that he said a little something that gained a little attention in certain circles, you might say. It was, Trump saying, you know what? That whole taking over the Panama Canal thing, that worked out. See, we got everything we wanted there. Chi-coms are gone. Didn't really have to take it. You know what we should take over? That Gaza Strip. Could really use some big, beautiful Trump hotels, something like that. So, That's still just the meltdowns on the left. He just is wanting to do this for profit. Again, that's like, Justin Trudeau's brother or something. But, so Trump considering the plan for the United States to take over the Gaza Strip, for the purpose of rebuilding and bringing peace, stability, and economic opportunity to the region. Something we talked about on last night's show. Something that actually is really good idea. Something that is really viable. Something that requires some additional thought, consideration beyond just the what would we be doing in Gaza and how would that even happen? Again, if you are familiar with all that, go check out the podcast, Mark Levin Show podcast from Thursday's show. There was another major foreign policy move made on Tuesday that was related to Trump's policy to potentially expand the United States. You know what it was? Something that you probably didn't hear about. Did you know that Greenland, we're talking about Panama Canal and Mexico and Canada. Did you know that Greenland made a pretty interesting move on Tuesday? We're still just on Tuesday. I'll pick up there next. Brian Mudd in for the great one, Mark Levin.
The markets are volatile. They're shooting up wildly only to drop without warning. The Fed just cut rates yet again, this time by a quarter point. Why? Because the Federal Reserve is not confident the economy is strong. In fact, last month only 12,000 jobs were created, all of them in the government. That's why I'm telling you again, diversification is crucially important. And diversification with gold is what I do. And the company I use, and I've used many, the best one is Advantage Gold. Call them now at 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit to see how gold gold can help you diversify your investments and take advantage now. Now, gold has been helping to protect and grow wealth for people for thousands of years. And in these times, it can be more crucial than ever. When it comes to gold, I trust Advantage Gold. They're one of the top gold companies in America. They're who I turn to when I purchase gold. Call them now, 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000 now for a free gold investment kit to see how gold can help you with your investment portfolio, a.k.a. your bank accounts, your paycheck. And when you do, you could qualify for $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Folks, don't wait. Call them now, 800-900-8000, and tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
The Mark Levin Show is tomorrow's morning show. You can reach Mark now at 877-381-3811.
Reciprocal trade so that we're treated evenly with other countries. We don't want any more or any less. So I'll be announcing that next week.
Yeah, sure enough. So, but wait. There is more. And what he's talking about, if you take a look at tariffs, I mean, most countries have tariffs on us. You know, people are like, well, what's Trump doing with all these tariffs? The tariff rate in the U.S. actually one of the lowest in the world. And Trump is like, hey, we're not going to continue to get screwed. And so, yeah, there's going to be some more stuff that goes down. Stand by for news. Brian Mudd here with you in for Mark Levin. And I'm walking you through the week. Through the first half hour of the show, I've gotten you to Tuesday and not even through Tuesday because it's been unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. So I'm going to pick up there. Anyway, it's still got, there's an amazing amount of stuff happening right now in real time. And Mr. Producer is working diligently to get me all the latest that Trump is literally making happen right now. It is an incredible and beautiful thing to see. Just a couple things real quick. So if you are not familiar with me, I am not too terribly far away from the winter White House. In fact, just a few miles away, actually, from where I'm broadcasting in West Palm Beach. I am the host of the Brian Mudd Show. WJNO West Palm is my home station. You can catch the Brian Mudd Show podcast wherever you get your podcasts, at Brian Mudd Radio socially. And also something that I'd like to invite you on. My wife and I have planned the vacation of a lifetime, and we would love for you to join us. It's all about having an amazing time with like-minded people all throughout Ireland. You have the opportunity to join us in London and Edinburgh as well. And, you know, when you travel internationally, it can be stressful. The logistics can be a pain, and just trying to make sure you don't miss things you want to. Everything's been thought out and taken care of. I mean, like literally somebody will come to your house, take you to the airport, airfare, transfers included, all the activities are included. You just get to choose like a portfolio every day. Hey, what is it you want to do? That's all included. Almost all the meals are included. It is just the opportunity for you to have the time of your life. So if this sounds interesting to you, go check it out. WJNO.com, right there on our homepage. You can get all that information, WJNO.com. All right, so Greenland. This is something that I'm not sure many people that are even paying attention are aware happened this week. This was on Tuesday. So Greenland, which of course, you know, Trump said, we should probably buy that. What do you think? And Denmark's like, no. And we're going to take our one naval vessel and stick it off of Greenland, which, by the way, they've done something like that. Like Denmark actually has a military presence around there or something, like to the extent that they have a military presence. It's fascinating. So what did Greenland have to say about this week? Well, Greenland's prime minister, get this, called a snap election. Yep, he's called a general election. It's going to take place on March 11th. So, I mean, it's coming up pretty quick. We're only a little over a month away. And Greenland is going to have a new election. Why? The agenda is to focus on establishing further independence from Denmark and to discover ways to enhance its economy. Now, what does that tell you? What does that sound like? Are both of those ideas not plays that are pretty much exactly lining up with what Trump would like to see happen in that region? So again, big bad crazy orange man. What's he going to do? Are we going to move troops into Panama to take over the canal? We're going to get in a war with China, and oh my gosh, these horrible tariffs! You're not going to be able to afford any. Win after win after, so the Greenland, you can't buy Greenland. Greenland's like, we don't know who you punks are, but like, we're not happy with our setup here. Denmark kind of sucks, and we could do a lot better. And so they've been moving towards independence for a long time, and clearly they see this now as their opportunity to do what it is that they want to do. So stand by for news on that one. We're up to Wednesday. We have now made it to Wednesday. And Wednesday, in certain circles, I think was the favorite day. Wednesday was the tranny take a hike day. And Wednesday was officially the tranny take a hike day. See, that was the day that brought about a heavy dose of common sense, which, yes, thank the good Lord, once again does actually exist. You know, how long has the question been floated out there? Is there any such thing as common sense anymore, right? Where did it go? How long has it been? Does it actually exist in society? Yes. Since January 20th, it exists again. As President Trump signed the executive order keeping men out of women's sports, which is why I dubbed it Tranny Take a Hike Day, and it mandates that any entity accepting federal funds must not allow biological males to compete as a female. As is stated in the order, it says, therefore, it is the policy of the United States to rescind all funds from the educational programs that deprive women and girls of fair athletic opportunities, which results in the endangerment, humiliation, and silencing of women and girls and deprives them of privacy. It shall also be the policy of the United States to oppose male competitive participation in women's sports more broadly as a matter of safety, fairness, dignity, and truth. Boom. Again, an actual return to common sense. By the way, now that talking about Tranny Take a Hike Day, now I got on my brain, I don't know if you came across this during the week, Nancy Mace. Nancy Mace had an interesting exchange with the conversation of transgender activities that were taking place. I mean, it is fun. It is quite the go around that we're having as we are taking a look at everything that our president is making happen. Okay, so on Wednesday, Marco Rubio, he also scored another Trump administration win. Guatemala agreed to a 40% increase in deportation flights from the United States. Did you know? Including taking deportees regardless of nationality. You know, somebody was asking me, you think the reason Rubio is having all this success is because Donald Trump is standing behind him? Yes. Yeah, I do. But at the same time, he's obviously a very effective messenger. He is the diplomat that, perhaps Trump isn't. And so having the diplomatic approach of Rubio with the strength of Trump standing behind him, yeah, this is how you get things done. Brilliant strategies here. So yes, Guatemala, 40% increase in deportation flights from the U.S. They'll take on anybody, take all comers, regardless of nationality. It's a big deal. Because what is this? It's laying the groundwork for the mass deportations that need to happen, right? You know, getting Guantanamo Bay online, getting El Salvador, who will take any criminal illegal aliens from any country there, getting Guatemala to take on anybody in their country. It's important. So, yeah, that was Wednesday. Now, Thursday, well, that was set to be the deadline day for federal workers to accept an 8-month federal buyout, a risk being laid off as Doge does its work to right-size the federal government. Now, a federal judge stepped in and extended the buyout deadline until at least Monday, as we came to learn. So this is one of those things. And I was talking about this yesterday. Do I think this is inappropriate? Yeah. Is this probably an activist judge that is looking to throw a fork into the agenda? Yeah, probably. But it may not necessarily be a bad thing based upon the way this goes down. I mean, there are a couple different things, and I'm just trying to get you through the week, so I'm not going to get into all the constitutional arguments associated with this one specific thing. But I just, from a macro perspective here, if you, as the chief executive of the country, running the executive branch, so the entire executive branch is the president's branch of government. If the president of the United States, who runs an entire branch of government, cannot fire his own employees, we got a constitutional crisis in our hands. And I don't give a damn. I don't give a rip. Union contract out your rear end. Take your public sector union and go pound sand. He's the president of the United States. If he wants to fire you, you pick up your crap and you go. Or we got a constitutional crisis in our hands. So that's the macro picture without getting into all of the constitutional arguments, which Mark, he's going to be back on Monday. He'll walk you through it all. A lot better than I could anyway. But one of the things that could be interesting about this, assuming that the Constitution is upheld here, that common sense on top of it, it prevails in the legal system. You had some velocity that was picking up because you go back and we had started a few days ago where you heard, man, it's only 20,000 people that had taken a buyout. Then we get to Wednesday, we're up to 40. By the time that judge ruled, that, hey, we're going to have a hearing and we're going to pause the buyout thing until Monday, we were over 60,000 and it was growing. Now, yes, that could be because you're coming up on the deadline. So people there on the fence are like, yeah, I guess I'll do it. But the other thing it could do is some people, it's a big decision, right? I mean, am I going to take a buyout and leave my job and do something else in my life? Especially with most of these federal employees that are what? Most of these people that get into the federal government, they become lifetime swamp creatures, right? That's what they think. I'm going to sit here and be a swamp creature, and I'm going to get my government pension and call it a life. And yes, I do know that there are like 5% of people that actually give a damn and do real work. So you've got them too. They'll probably be the people that stay. But it might be the case that you can bring in more people into the fold, have more swamp creatures strain themselves this way. And the other thing that's interesting about it is you start talking about numbers here. And what does that represent? Well, Elon Musk said we need to wipe out 30% of the federal employees. That's his goal here. Now, he took out, again, 80% of the Twitter employees and turned it into X and made it a better company, made it a better product. So I have no doubt that we could axe 80% of the federal workforce and end up with a better product. Absolutely no doubt about that whatsoever. But generously, 30%. Okay, so, well, just what is going to be done by the time that these USAID people are gone tonight, and if you were to factor in the people that said they were going to take this buyout, we're now over 3%. We're now over 3% of the federal workforce. So, look, at that point, you're 10th of the way there already. Third week, Doge on the scene, 10th of the way to the goal. That's a heck of a lot of progress. Now, also on Thursday, you had President Trump. He started the day with a national prayer breakfast and promising additional executive action. That's what he delivered. He signed the 2 additional executive orders, one sanctioning the International Criminal Court, those punks that issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, his former defense minister. Another that had been targeting anti-Christian bias within the establishment, within the government task force that he has handed over to Attorney General Pam Bondi. And President Trump He also signed an executive memo ordering a review of funding for all non-governmental organizations that rely on federal tax dollars. So this is another one that is huge here. A review of funding for all non-governmental organizations. Okay, so NGOs wants to see all money flow from the federal government to NGOs. Oh, and at the same time, he went ahead and placed over 100 employees working on environmental justice at the EPA on leave. That was yesterday, too. It's like, and then there got 100 of them over there. Environmental justice? Yeah, no. You go do something else for a living. Again, we're just on Thursday. There's stuff that's been happening in real time. We'll get you up to speed. I'm Brian Mudd, in for the great one.
Mark Levin.
Did you see what the Federal Reserve did literally days after President Trump's victory? It's lowered interest rates by 1/4. Do you know why it did that? It's worried about the economy. It's worried about the fact that jobs aren't being created. We're seeing all kinds of shifts in our portfolios, and it's important to stay aware. That's why I'm urging everyone to diversify and consider gold as one of your financial shields. Now, gold has weathered every kind of economic downturn throughout history. I want you to call Advantage Gold. They're the best of the best, folks. I've dealt with all of them. They're the best. They're my gold company. 1-800-900-8000. Get a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. I recommend Advantage Gold to anyone who's serious about protecting their wealth, and that's you. Call 800-900-8000 for your free gold investment kit, and you can even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be very happy with them. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
I will probably be meeting with President Zelensky next week, and I will probably be talking to President Putin. I'd like to see that war end for one primary reason. They're killing so many people.
Yeah, so that figures to be interesting here next week. Brian Mudd in for Mark Levin. And speaking of the week, walking you through it. And what an incredible week it has been. Now, as we are approaching Friday, we're actually on Friday, but I'm talking about in my depiction of what's happened this week. We have had breaking news since the start of the show that was brought to my attention by Mr. Producer involving something I was just talking about, and that was the USAID employees, the shutting down of USAID, except for just a few hundred employees and everything else. Well, you have had an activist judge that has now stepped in and temporarily blocked the shutdown of USAID. So you have U.S. District Judge Carl Nichols said, "I'll have a ruling later. I'll write down some notes and scratch out some things about why I think this should happen. But yeah, you shouldn't do it." So going to try to stand in the way of the massive furloughing, laying off of USAID employees that was going to happen by midnight tonight. So we will see what goes on there. Talked about this being something that is going to have to be worked through because we know that the leftist and the activist judges are going to try to stop this around every turn. But undeterred, we will get there. We'll continue to make progress. And what I said remains, which is ultimately, if you are the president of the United States, if you are the chief executive and you do not have the ability to fire, to terminate people that work for you, what do you have the power to do? And how is that not a constitutional crisis? So ultimately, I do believe that the rule of law, I do believe that constitutional principles will apply. But yes, we see the USAID postponement here. We'll see how this all plays out tonight and through the weekend as well. But I still got to get you to Friday and what's going on there. What an incredible week it has been. Breaking news all throughout the hour. Be right back.
This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
I had preferred not to do it this way. When we tried to do it from the top down by getting cooperation from the central office of USAID, what we found instead are people trying to use the system to sneak through payments and push through payments.
Yeah, that is Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and what we also now see is a sleazy judge that is trying to keep the status quo in place. You know, the swamp is going to go to great lengths to try to protect itself. You think about how much the swamp and its creatures and the Marxists in our government, all the established elements did to try to prevent Trump from ever becoming president and ultimately to try to keep him from becoming president yet again. You know, it's going to be a challenge on every turn when they specifically are in the crosshairs. And that very much is the case. Brian Mudd in for Mark Levin. Honor and a pleasure to be here with you. I've been walking you through this week. It took the entire first hour, and I didn't get there. We're still not up to where we are on Friday. It has been the most incredible presidency ever. We're 3 weeks in. Not even. We've never seen anything like this. And the whole idea I had was just, it is so hard to even keep up. And so the other thing is there's so much news that is going on that just so much gets lost in the shuffle. And I think there are a lot of things that people don't realize. Like, hey, you know, Greenland called a snap election. It looks like they're angling to get close to what Trump is talking about in terms of ideas. How many people know that? You know, all the major foreign policy wins we've had this week, all the executive actions that are moving the needle. And yes, some of the frustrations along the way, like the injunction that was just put in by this judge that is trying to keep the status quo at USAID in place. And, you know, we'll follow that whole deal. But, so as we walk through everything that has been happening this week, you know, today, as we walk into Friday with President Trump, big day of bilateral meetings with the Japanese prime minister, ended up holding a joint presser with him as well, talking about trade policies. Nat gas in particular was one that he was really proud of, had a clip of that in the first hour. We're going to have a record amount of U.S. natural gas that is flowing to Japan, and talked about, you know, basically taking our trade on steroids with them. We've had some other things that have gone on, too, more recently. So some of this came out in truths within the past hour and a half or so. And one of them was like, and I can almost read between the lines here to see how Trump came about this. On Truth, you had Trump post, "At my direction, we're going to make the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. great again." A lot of people have been waiting for that. You know, when's the Kennedy Center going to be? When's that going to be great again? He said, "I have decided to immediately terminate multiple individuals from the board of trustees, including the chairman, who do not share our vision for a golden age in arts and culture." And so you can kind of see how this thing comes down, right? He goes, "Oh, wait, I can do something here. The board of trustees, these people, yeah, let's get rid of them. We'll show them how to do the golden age in arts and culture." Can you imagine all these poor creatures? So yes, we are in the process of making the Kennedy Center, I keep saying that, center, great again. And by the way, speaking of the Kennedy Center, said it featured drag shows specifically targeting our youth. This will stop. He said it's an American jewel, must reflect the brightest stars on its stage from all across the nation. And so he said the best is yet to come. Now, we ended up getting an executive order right behind that. The executive order, 2A related. So President Trump ended up signing an executive order late this afternoon that is basically ordering the Department of Justice to review everything that happened with gun policies by the Biden administration. It's a 30-day review of everything from 21 through January 25, and wants after that 30 days a report back that will then be sent to the Attorney General for actions to be taken to see about unwinding some of the regulations and restrictions that were put in place on gun policy. So that just ended up coming down. And in the category of, but wait, there's more. What do you think Joe Biden's up to right now? I mean, seriously, think for it. What is Joe Biden doing right this minute? You're thinking sleeping, right? Most people are there. 7-11 Eastern? Yeah, probably. So whatever Joe is doing right now, here's a question. Do you think he is aware that he just had his classified access yanked? So Trump ended up truthing this. He said there is no need for Joe Biden to continue receiving access to classified information. Therefore, we are immediately revoking Joe Biden's security clearances and stopping his daily intelligence briefings. By the way, Biden getting daily intelligence briefings? I mean, how many people think that's really happening anyway? I mean, maybe you do actually have someone, Mr. President, and he just kind of sits there and drools. And then they leave and he kind of looks around the room for a minute and they're like, I mean, it is possible that has been happening. I hold out the but we know that his daily briefings when he was president, not exactly what you would expect. Some of the accounts that we were hearing. So now that he's out of the office, but anyway, to the extent that there was a daily intelligence briefing taking place with Joe Biden, that is gone now as well. The security clearances. He said this is Trump now. He said he set this precedent in 2021 when he instructed the intelligence community to stop the 45th president of the United States, me, from accessing details on national security, a courtesy provided to former presidents. The Her report revealed that Biden suffers from poor memory and even in his prime could not be trusted with sensitive information. Boy, isn't that the truth. How much money did that family make off of the information that he was peddling? I will always protect our national security. Joe, you're fired. That's all caps, by the way. Make America great again. One of the most prolific social media posts ever done, known to man. Joe, you're fired. Make America great again. I just yanked your security clearances, and the guy who comes in and reads stuff to you in the morning, he's got to stop doing that. And today is only Friday. It's only Friday. And Friday's not even done. So stand by for news, because, again, breaking news all throughout the beginning of this show. We have never had anything like this. Week 3, it has proved to be every bit as busy, every bit as productive as Trump's first week. Just absolutely, absolutely incredible. And one of the things I was taking a look at along these lines, Trump's plan. You may have seen this. If you pay close attention to stuff, it's been out there for a year. You know, Trump put out a 20-point plan. You know, he always talks about promises made, promises kept. He just tells you what he stands for, and he goes out there and he does it, right? Well, the first thing is, we are now up to, with the most recent executive order, I think we got 57 executive orders. By the way, that is now over a quarter of the entire activity of his first term. Trump, within the first 3 weeks here, has taken over a quarter of the executive action that he took during his entire 4 years the first time around. So it really is remarkable. You say we've not seen this before. We have not. But the 20-point plan by Trump, as I was kind of going through the weekend, taking a look at everything that had happened there, it's like, you know what? Let's see how much of his plan is either accomplished at this point or has been put into motion. It was what he called Agenda 47. And guess what? A whole heck of a lot of it. I'll start walking you through this. The first point on Trump's 20-point plan, seal the border and stop the migrant invasion. Boom, that's happened, right? Nobody's getting across the border. There are not even any gotaways anymore. Done. Verse 1. Number 2, carry out the largest deportation operation in American history. Well, obviously, that hasn't happened yet. The deportations have started, but all the groundwork for that to happen is what, in many ways, Rubio's been working on this week. You know, we get Guantanamo Bay back open and going. You know, we're taking deportees there. We're going to be taking them to El Salvador. We're going to be taking them to Guatemala, even people who are not Guatemalan, ditto in El Salvador. And so that is all part of laying the groundwork to get these people out of our country. So definitely put in motion. The third one, end inflation and make America affordable again. Now, a couple things about this. Obviously, that doesn't just happen like that. It takes time to wind this out. But I began talking about it. I may have an opportunity to break down a bit more the inflation impact to you during the show. May not. I don't want to make promises that I can't keep. But the bottom line is this. The inflation impact of illegal immigrants is so much higher than people ever realized. And so on the show last night, I mentioned that the household inflation adjusted impact last year to you was $4,800. $4,800 was the cost of illegal immigration to you. By the time you factor in the hard cost and also the inflationary impact of all of the illegal immigration taking place in this country, over $4,800 for the average household. It's insane. So as we are stopping the flow of the not so warm and fluffy migrants across our border and over our borders, as we are starting the deportations, that is highly, highly deflationary. So even independent of having his agenda, which Congress is working on, it does still look like the Senate is taking the lead, which, by the way, is not the way this should happen. Mike Johnson and the House need a lead on one bill. But nevertheless, he's already put into motion huge, meaningful policies that will lead to lower costs for you. It's absolutely been put into motion. We're through the first three here. So I'll pick up with number 4 next. I'm Brian Mudd, in for the great one.
Mudd Levin.
This country was founded on freedom. Freedom from a country that forced us to buy overpriced tea, then try blockading us when we dumped their tea into the ocean. How'd that work out? Well, it's time to throw your overpriced big wireless contract overboard, too. You don't need to pay $100 a month per person just to get a free phone. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, says no to inflated prices and gimmicks. With a qualifying plan of just $45 a month, you can choose a free iPhone 14 or a free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans. And yes, this is for a premium service. Unlimited talk, text, 25 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot at a fraction of the price of the big three. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Get your free iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans by visiting puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free iPhone or Galaxy with a qualifying purchase from Pure Talk. America's wireless company, my wireless company.
Social Security will not be touched. It'll only be strengthened. We have illegal immigrants on Social Security, and we're going to find out who they are and take them out.
We're going to take them out. And, you know, I mean, when we say take them out, you know, that could mean, too. It's insane, right? Illegal immigrants on Social Security, too? Oh, that's fun. Yeah, Brian Mudd in for Mark Levin, and have walked you through the week, which has been unbelievable. We've never seen 3 weeks of a presidency like what we have seen, and we're not even a full 3 weeks in. And I'm walking you through now Trump's 20-point plan, what he outlined that he would do, what this administration would be about, and just the incredible amount of progress that has already been made. I mean, how he's acting on everything that he laid out and said, I'm going to do this. You could tell that he spent the entire 4 years out of office working on this plan and executing as soon as he got into office. So it's up to the fourth point on Trump's 20-point plan. And that is to make America the dominant energy producer in the world by far. Absolutely. Day one executive actions, undoing regulations put in place by the Biden administration. By the way, some of the House legislation, and I think some of the Senate, based upon how that bill or bills end up going, they're going to codify what Trump has done through executive actions through policy. Number 5, stop outsourcing and turn the United States into a manufacturing superpower. Well, we have absolutely seen action taken there. Again, all kinds of regulations that have been taken out that were put in place. But then also, the tariffs play into this too. It all has to do with encouraging manufacturing inside of the United States. It's 1-2. Now, before any of the tariff activity was taking place last Friday, Trump signed a executive order getting rid of a host of regulations that would make it easier to be able to manufacture in the United States. The 6th point on Trump's 20-point plan, large tax cuts for workers, no tax on tips. A lot of people familiar with that. Of course, that is one that requires the act of Congress. Again, we're awaiting the legislation on it. 7th point on Trump's plan, defend our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and our fundamental freedoms, including freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the right to keep and bear arms. Well, absolutely, we've seen action on that. And in fact, mentioned that just within the past hour plus, we have had an executive order issued by President Trump to go ahead and get rid of onerous regulations on the Second Amendment that have been put in place previously. Trump, his 8th point, prevent World War III, restore peace in Europe and in the Middle East, build a great Iron Dome missile defense shield over the entire country, all made in America. A couple things there. I mean, be it by the grace of God and the fact that Donald Trump is president that we're not in World War III, I do think there's a really good chance that even before the election, the realization that Trump could be, maybe likely would be the next president, helped keep things at bay to a certain extent. But we absolutely saw him broker the deal, right? It was Team Trump that brokered the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. And that got the hostages flowing out of Hamas control. We heard that next week you're going to have Trump meeting with Zelensky and meeting with Putin and working on peace there. Now, the Great Iron Dome missile defense shield over the entire country. That's cool. Reagan would be proud. Talking SDI type material here. But in the context of what Israel has in its Iron Dome, we'll pick up with the plan next. Brian Mudd in for the great one, Mark Levin.
This country was founded on freedom. Freedom from a country that forced us to buy overpriced tea, then try blockading us when we dumped their tea into the ocean. How'd that work out? Well, it's time to throw your overpriced big wireless contract overboard, too. You don't need to pay $100 a month per person just to get a free phone. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, says no to inflated prices and gimmicks. With a qualifying plan of just $45 a month, you can choose a free iPhone 14 or a free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans. And yes, this is for a premium service. Unlimited talk, text, 25 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot at a fraction of the price of the big three. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Get your free iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans by visiting puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free iPhone or Galaxy with a qualifying purchase from Pure Talk. America's wireless company, my wireless company.
Mark Levin, radio's principal patriot. Call in now at 877-381-3811.
We're going to get back to the core function of what our government, our law enforcement was intended to do: prosecute violent criminals and get them off our streets. Weaponization ends, and it ended the day that Donald Trump took office.
That is your Attorney General Pam Bondi, and it also is right on cue for where we are in Trump's 20-point plan. Brian Mudd in for Mark Levin, walking you through the week that has been, the incredible week that it's been, and then also just checking off Trump's 20-point plan, what he laid out for this administration, and how much progress is already being made against all of those items. And so on that note, number 9, end the weaponization of government against the American people. Pam talking about it right there. The weaponization of the DOJ is done. As she said, it was over on January 20th. And absolutely action was taken. Trump signed executive action ending the weaponization of the government against you. Pam Bondi, as Attorney General, took immediate action to make sure that it's falling through the entire DOJ. How about stopping the migrant crime epidemic? This is number 10. And it's interesting because you can see how much of a priority all this is. Remember, number 1 was to seal the border, stop the migrant invasion. Number 2, carry out the largest deportation operation in American history. Then we get to number 10 in his 20-point plan: stop the migrant crime epidemic, demolish the foreign drug cartels, crush gang violence, lock up violent offenders. Boy, has this ever been happening in a big way, right? So it's not just that we have stopped the flow of illegal immigration. It's not just that we have started up the deportation activities and are laying the groundwork all throughout this week. Senator Rubio doing the legwork to help with mass deportation type efforts, speed up that process. But the migrant crime. So right away, Trump signed executive action recognizing them as terrorist organizations, right? The drug cartels, terrorist organizations. And he didn't stop there, because all part of what he ended up doing this week with Canada and Mexico was aimed at this as well, right? He got Canada and Mexico to also identify the cartels as terrorist organizations. And then he got them to enforce their borders. So you start putting all this together. It's incredible. You can see that literally he had his 20-point plan and he's going down as he's working on these executive actions. Number 11, rebuild our cities, including Washington, D.C., making them safe, clean, and beautiful again. That is, it's going to take some doing. The rebuilding of our, maybe we rebuild Gaza first. What do you think the over-under is? That we have Gaza together before we have DC together. I don't know. Number 12. That might be the one. If I'm going to pick something out of the 20-point plan, that one, I don't know. Number 12. Strengthen and modernize our military, making it without question the strongest and most powerful in the world. Well, we certainly know that's not going to be tranny powered anymore. Yeah, Trump has taken executive action moving in this direction to reprioritize the Department of Defense. Pete Hegseth certainly falling through that way as well. Number 13, keep the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. Well, if you take a look at the U.S. dollar index and you see the strength of the U.S. dollar and what's happened since Trump became president, you'll see that already these early actions have strengthened the dollar considerably. Number 14, fight for and protect Social Security and Medicare with no cuts, including no changes to the retirement age. Okay. Number 15, cancel the electric vehicle. And by the way, he signed an executive action aimed at that as well. I mean, it's just not going to have any cuts. You heard where, the illegal aliens are being taken off of Social Security. That'll also help strengthen it when you don't have people that are illegally siphoning money off of it as well. cancel the electric vehicle mandate and cut costly and burdensome regulations. Boy, that happened. He took executive action right away, getting rid of the EV mandates and, yes, on regulations as well. Number 16 in his 20-point plan to cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, radical gender ideology, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content on our children. Well, we've already seen moves. He signed an executive action aimed at this, and we have not seen federal funding for schools cut at this point. That's all pending review of the executive action. There's a window of time where there has to be an analysis, and then they'll report back before that kind of thing actually happens. But, of course, he's also getting ready to tee up the Department of Education executive order as well to lay the groundwork for getting rid of it as well. We do know already Pam Bondi has started to cut off federal funding for sanctuary cities. So that element's in motion. Number 17 on his 20-point plan, keep men out of women's sports. Again, Wednesday, tranny take a hike day. Done. Done and done. And by the way, don't you love the hypocrites at the NCAA? These people, these woke jokers, they're all about having, some dude who pretends to be a lady go out there and, compete with women and defend it until money's involved. And the moment that Trump signs an executive order that says, guess what? We're going to take all your money away. If you're getting any money from us, no matter who you are, any federal funding, that money goes away. If you have dudes that pretend to be ladies competing as, girls or women. And the NCAA is like, yes, Mr. President, we'll stop that now. You people just suck at life. You won't do the right thing because it's the right thing. But the moment the money is involved, woke jokers. Number 18 on the 20-point plan. Deport pro-Hamas radicals and make our college campuses safe and patriotic again. And that one's interesting. The deport pro-Hamas radicals. I was thinking about that. You did have the El Salvadorian president say, hell, I'll take on Americans even here. Because, if you think about it, and you start talking about college campuses, how many of the pro-Hamas radicals are really just American? No. I don't know that we've necessarily had the deporting of pro-Hamas radicals at this point. We have had an executive order that is aimed at eradicating anti-Semitism on college campuses and all throughout anything that is government funded. So that is underway. Number 19, secure our elections. He also wants proof of citizenship as part of that. And there is a review about security in elections. No grand actions that have been taken there yet. Number 20, unite our country by bringing it to a new and record level of success. Well, I have no doubt that in the end, that will happen. One of the things that's interesting, you take a look back. It was very easy to forget shortly thereafter for certainly everybody who was politically opposed to the man. Think about how good things were in 2019 and the very beginning of 2020. You take a look at how good the economy was. You had record prosperity. You had upward mobility taking place because we had super low inflation. Inflation was barely over 1%. Incomes were rising at close to 5%. You had, the record employment for every minority group. And again, they were benefiting actually the most during that window of time. And there's nothing that unifies people like success, right? And so actually through success, that is how you are able to unite people. And so even the bad, evil Orangeman people at this point are liable to find that they're in a happier place in the coming years as Trump succeeds in making America great again. Pretty remarkable what's happened here. All right, I am intrigued. Let's go to the phone. It's been some folks that have been patiently waiting on the line. I'm intrigued in particular by Michelle. This ought to be interesting. Michelle, welcome. Oh, she dropped. Oh, Mr. Producer told me she just dropped. Oh, yeah, no, Mr. Producer is telling me she was a lib. Yeah, she said inflation will go up deporting these people. I don't know. You don't know what you're talking about. No, you're right. When it comes to economics, I'm out to lunch. You're so correct. I just, I really should get to my breakdown of inflation. By the way, Michelle, if you're still listening there, the first thing you can do as a tutorial is go back and listen to the podcast, because I walk through a lot of the inflationary impact and the actual cost to you. You can actually sit there and defend this stuff, but you probably, I'm guessing, I'll take a stab at it, that you do not enjoy paying over $1,350 in hard costs to facilitate illegal immigration as you're filing your taxes this year for last year. But I am rather certain $4,800 is the net inflation impact per household. It's the average household because of illegal immigration. I'm guessing that as much as you would like to defend the warm and fluffy migrants, that you would rather have $4,800 in your pocket, your family's pocket, than paying to facilitate illegal immigration. By the way, do your homework before you challenge me on economics, just as an aside. Let's go to Ted. Ted, welcome to the show.
Hey, say we can't allow this country to be ruled by slip and fall lawyers dressed up in black dresses. Congress has the ability to limit the jurisdiction of the district and appellate courts. They should pass a law limiting jurisdiction for presidential actions to the Supreme Court. If anybody wants to challenge a presidential action at that level, they can't go to some district court someplace. Come on. That doesn't make any sense. Congress can do that tomorrow. They can draft legislation and pass it limiting jurisdiction for any challenge to a presidential action to the Supreme Court.
And ultimately, you talk about an act of Congress here. Well, you'd have to get that through the Senate as well. And therein lies the challenge to, that particular issue. Are you going to get Democrats on board with that to overcome a filibuster in the Senate? So you're right. And you're right. But one of the things, and we need to see how this is going to play. Again, I'm reserving some judgment on some of this legal maneuvering for a couple of reasons. One, I learned patience during the first Trump administration because my head wanted to explode on many occasions for a very long time with all of the absurdities that were being challenged around every turn, where in the end, Trump almost always won. And you take a look, the one in particular, and I touched on this last night, that Trump fought literally the entire first 3 years of his presidency. Sanctuary cities, funding to sanctuary cities. And they tied that thing up in the courts until he got a final ruling, got the U.S. Supreme Court to side with him in February of 2020, right before the pandemic hit. But there are two things that are in play here. In some of the areas where we need legal wins, Trump already had them in the first administration. So that will mitigate some of the frustration. So, for example, when Attorney General Pam Bondi comes out and says, you sanctuary cities, we're going to just defund you. Then you're not going to get federal grants any longer. There's no legal question about that because the Trump administration already won on that. As you start to take a look at some of these challenges to employment contracts and that type of thing, we'll see how this goes. Trump is obviously much smarter in his approach this time around, right? One of the big problems he had the first time, he was new to all this. He also didn't know who he could trust. And some of the people he thought he could trust, he couldn't. And it took him time to get himself surrounded with the right people. He's got all the right people in all the right places, and they are getting the job done. And so if you juxtapose what happened in his first administration compared to where we are, I have more confidence that they know how to navigate this situation a bit more efficiently than happened previously. And you have to know that they were expecting all of these legal challenges. So, yeah, I understand the frustration. I'm right there with you. I do think we win in the end, and maybe more quickly than you might think. And I think certainly more quickly than what we saw during the first Trump administration. I'm Brian Mudd, in for the great one.
Mudd Levin.
This country was founded on freedom. Freedom from a country that forced us to buy overpriced tea, then try blockading us when we dumped their tea into the ocean. How'd that work out? Well, it's time to throw your overpriced big wireless contract overboard, too. You don't need to pay $100 a month per person just to get a free phone. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, says no to inflated prices and gimmicks. With a qualifying plan of just $45 a month, you can choose a free iPhone 14 or a free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans. And yes, this is for a premium service. Unlimited talk, text, 25 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot at a fraction of the price of the big three. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Get your free iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans by visiting puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free iPhone or Galaxy with a qualifying purchase from Pure Talk. America's wireless company, my wireless company.
They are not invaders. They're human beings. They do not deserve to be punished solely because of their parents' immigration status.
They're not invaders. We need like extraterrestrials or something. Is that the only way that... That, by the way, the Attorney General of Massachusetts, one of the things I always love is Massachusetts always comes, it's the most educated state, the most people with the most formal education, and they produce people like her. You vote for people like that. You vote for Kamala Harris. How intelligent are you really in Massachusetts at large? I'm just saying. If ever, my dad always had this saying that, it's good to be open-minded, but not to the point where your brain falls out. I guess that's what's happened. Just become so smart and so formally educated in Massachusetts that your brains have actually fallen out and you produce people like that. Anyway, you've got a challenge to birthright citizenship. You got a bunch of them happening. One of them, you've got 18 states attorneys general that, including her in Massachusetts, that are petitioning this Boston judge who is going to take a look at birthright citizenship and, all the various other things, the legal challenges across the country. Couple things about that real quick. Birthright citizenship is not inherent. One of the big lies that exist out there is that, if you are born on American soil, you're an American citizen. I mean, do you think that's the case? Empirically? Is it inherent that if you're born on U.S. soil, you are an American citizen? The answer is no. The answer is that is absolutely false. In fact, there are 4 existing exceptions to birthright citizenship that have been recognized by the United States Supreme Court. Those happen to be children born to foreign diplomats, children born in outlying possessions such as American Samoa and the Swains Island, children born to enemy invaders, and children born to tribal families that owe direct allegiance to their tribe. So we already have 4 exceptions to birthright citizenship that exist. And they all have what in common? Foreign allegiance, right? So let me ask you, if you have somebody who's not even in this country legally, and remember, with Trump's order, you just had to have one person. You didn't have to have both parents. It could have been a mother or a father. Just give me one of them that is in this country legally, that has a right to be here, and you're fine. But if nobody associated with this child is legal, then no, the child does. How is that not 100% consistent with all 4 exceptions to birthright citizenship? The fact of the matter is that it is. So no, for people who go, oh my gosh, this is like the biggest no-brainer ever. I mean, how is Trump even thinking that he could use a pen and do this? No, you could not be more wrong. You don't understand the Constitution, you don't know the Supreme Court rulings, or you're just lying through your teeth. 4 exceptions, and this, illegal immigrants, absolutely should be the 5th. Be right back. Brian Mudd in for The Great One.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
I want to see it go back to the states where great states that do so well have no debt. They're operated brilliantly. They'll be as good as Norway or Denmark or Sweden.
That is the president talking about education. So Trump on education, as he has had just some kind of an incredible week. Brian Mudd in for Mark Levin, and we've been walking through the week that has been and Trump's 20-point plan and how he's already either accomplished or put almost all of it into motion. We just have never seen anything like this from an administration before. Absolutely a lot to be optimistic about. Man, getting rid of the Department of Education, that is kind of like, that is stimulating on a level that's almost inappropriate for me. Like, you know, talk sexy to me again, Mr. President. He's been teasing, Trump has been all for getting rid of the Department of Education, but he's been teasing the executive order to set the roadmap for this most of the week. Obviously talking about it there again. And it's like, yeah, you know what? I'm ready. Give me the good stuff. Give me the good executive order that I've been waiting for here, Mr. President. Let's get this ball rolling. I mean, yeah, the USAID, those rejects. Yes, I want them gone. Yeah, I want most of the federal government gone. And by the way, I do hear from federal employees, you know, that do a good job here and there. I'm not saying that there aren't folks who do a good job in government. We just do not need most of your colleagues. Period. We don't. We do not. Again, this country was founded on 5 government agencies. We have 430 of them. 430. How many can you name? How many can a member of Congress name? Yeah, I really do want, we really should do this. You know what? We should talk to Trump about this and get him. This would be the kind of thing that Trump would do. Always said we should just get every single member of Congress into a room. You get them into a room, you take away their internet access, so you take away their phones, you give them a piece of paper or as many pieces of paper, notebook, and a pen, and you can sit there and spend the entire day naming every single federal government agency you can possibly name. And if at the end of that day, one of the members of Congress, if not a single member of Congress, can name your agency, you go. And how many do you think would go, by the way? Bet you most. Bet you if we got every single member of Congress together, most of the federal agencies would not survive. And what that really is about baseline budgeting and just how truly absurd it all is, that you have people that vote to fund things they don't even really know exist. But yeah, about the Department of Education, let's talk about this, because for me, this has been like the one thing, because you take a look at whatever ails our society, all roads lead back to education. And man, has it gone in one direction in this country since the implementation of the Department of Education. You know, so anytime I think about the Department of Education, I think about the advice that I was given early in my career. First time I had met with the top executive in my radio career, I was about 4, maybe close to 5 years into it. And kind of a big deal, big radio exec came, paid me a visit. And I asked him, what is it I can do to get better? And he's kind of looked at me and said, Brian, just stop doing the bad stuff. Like, what? Yeah, just stop doing the bad stuff. And the point being that, you know, it's really hard to improve upon things that you're not particularly adept at doing. But we all do stuff that is bad, right? So if you just stop the bad stuff, you just cut out the crap, guess what? You get better. A lot of sense. The Department of Education is that. We had a great education system in this country, a truly great education system. And then we let it go to crap. And I want to start here. It's with public perception of this. What percentage of Americans are completely satisfied with the state of K through 12 education in this country? Well, according to Gallup, the answer is 9%. People want to defend, the status quo in the education establishment. 9% of Americans are actually satisfied with the state of K through 12 education. And parents just don't tend to view that as a good thing. And only 43% find the current state of K through 12 education to even be somewhat satisfactory. That's it, 43%. You take a look at your property tax bill. Almost certainly the biggest expense you have is going to be for schools. It's going to be for education. And you're not, most people aren't even somewhat satisfied with it. Only 9% are completely satisfied with it. All this means that 91% of us, know what's up, have a brain, and know that we can do better. And they're right, because our country has done considerably better prior to the creation of the Department of Education. And that is exactly front and center in the change that needs to happen in this country. We talk about what happened in November and how the change in the election, the change in the American people was something that was bigger than just flipping from a Democrat to a Republican. It's this kind of change that people are looking for. Most people want change in the education establishment. But in the grand scheme of bad stuff that just metastasizes in our nation's capital, there really is potentially nothing worse than the U.S. Department of Education. Whoever thought that getting considerably worse results for considerably more money was ever a good idea? And unless you're supportive of that concept, you should want to stop doing all that bad stuff. And so when it comes to education in this country, that means eliminating the Department of Education. So walk you through this, talked about this quite a bit. Entering 1980, which was the, when we end up having that go into motion, and really the first full year of operations for the Department of Education, 80 into 81. The average education outcome for Americans, where did we rank in the world? We were second in the world in education. Before we had the Department of Education, number 2 in the world. We were outstanding. And what happened? Well, during that time, you had states that had control of it, right? You had local school districts that were running the show, and the result ended up being great. We were second in the world. And by the way, yes, you did still have, even though you had the Supreme Court in 1964 say you got to get religion out of the classroom and everything else, you did have that still existing because within certain states, within certain school districts, they were okay with it and thought it was appropriate for a certain level of observance. Religious holidays, for example, it's like, well, this is Christmas break. Remember when that became winter break? That was after the establishment of the Department of Education in most places. And so references, even prayers in a lot of districts were acceptable. And guess what happened? Over the next 20 years, entering the 2000s, we experienced a 300% increase in diagnosed depression. Now, isn't it interesting that all of a sudden mental health becomes this huge, massive issue right at the time that we have people coming of age that went through school under the U.S. Department of Education to make sure all that stuff was rooted out. Can't have any of that religion, can't have any morality. Just what we say goes. At the same time, the United States, just between the early 80s and 2000, slid from second in grade school outcomes to 17th. Over the subsequent 20 years, what happened? We fell to 27th. So we institute the Department of Education. We go from second to 27th in education outcomes. And we've still been falling more recently, and actually in some categories are even worse than that. It all directly coincides with the establishment of the Department of Education, the implementation of its various agendas. Now, the other thing that I don't think is coincidental, the mental health issues and everything else, the eradication of any kind of religion from any schools, that are not private. Pew Research Center, if you go back to 80, only 6% of Americans did not identify with any religion or faith. But what's happened since? Well, you had a greater than threefold increase in atheism. But if you start taking a look at age groups, that doesn't tell the full story, because for those under the age of 35, over a quarter now, 26% don't believe in God. Again, this was 6% at the time of the establishment of the Department of Education. Gone from 6 to 26%, 300% increase in diagnosed depression and mental health issues. And then you start taking a look at some of the other outcomes. What are those outcomes? Well, with the issues, we had the onset of school shootings, starting with Columbine in 99, the first generation raised in the current faithless public school system under the Department of Education. So much worse education results, a proliferation of mental health issues, subsequently more violence. I would say that's a damning record for the U.S. Department of Education. They failed at everything. Everything has gotten worse. Everything has turned in the direction of crap since the Department of Education came onto the scene. And as a bonus, how much more do we pay? As taxpayers, we pay $80 billion annually to fund that kind of failure. Now, why would we do that to ourselves? Why would we do that to our kids? So the bottom line is, we just need to stop doing the bad stuff to get better. It is not complicated. The U.S. was a world leader in education before the creation of the U.S. Department of Education in 1980. We have gone nowhere but backwards since. So cut out the bad stuff. And from a point of practicality, not only could it save taxpayers money while getting a better educational result in return, but the influence of the teachers' unions, other political organizations that infest all D.C. bureaucracies, that taint educational agendas, taint the curriculum in the classrooms, that crap goes away as well. There wasn't a need for the U.S. Department of Education for the first 204 years of our country's history. I found a lot of people that don't even realize that the Department of Education hadn't always been, they thought it always been there. No. 204 years, no Department of Education, great education outcomes. 44 years of Department of Education, nothing but problems. From classroom outcomes, mental health problems, and the lack of morality in society, and all at a high expense. But other than that, it's terrific. So if Trump can get any single agency to go away, make it this one. It would make the United States an exponentially better place. Now, the key to this is when he puts out that executive order, Congress has to go along with this to be able to really make the Department of Education go away. We can Doge it. We can get in there and see what we can do to Doge up the Department of Ed. But to actually get rid of it, you have to get past that filibuster in the Senate. You need to peel off some Democrats that would actually do the right thing. And so that's why it's really important that people that are not happy, the majority of Americans, speak up and want a better outcome for their kids, want a better outcome for society. It's right there waiting for you. Brian Mudd in for the great one.
Mudd Levin.
I don't want anybody here in the media reporting that they're trying to right-size government or shrink the size of the federal government. No, they want to redistribute the public funding to their billionaire buddies. That's what they're all about.
Do you hear me? I don't want anybody here report. I'm going to tell you how you should report things. I mean, I do know Democrats are used to their state-run media taking the marching steps. It's all. So that was all part of the freak out that happened at the Department of Education. You had a smattering of Democrats, of congressional Democrats, that's Greg Cesar, a Democrat in Texas, among them, that went there and pulled this stunt where they're going to try to access the Department of Education and I don't know, huff and puff and get upset at Elon Musk and big balls or something. I don't know. It was going to be a thing, but they weren't allowed in, and so I don't want anybody here reporting anything other than what I think you should report. These people are so desperate and pathetic. If you are represented by that guy, oh my gosh. I mean, to say your representation is pathetic is, that's a given, but wow. I feel sorry for you. Although my House representative, which is also Donald Trump's, not exactly a winner either. But I still think she's more of a man than that guy is. But nevertheless, we'll talk a little bit about Doge and the status quo, because this is all about maintaining the status quo in the swamp, right? Okay, so Elon Musk, Team Doge, with big balls in tow, and the Trump administration, they are in full-fledged cost-cutting and efficiency mode, right? We've seen this around every corner. Yes, they're being met with challenges every step of the way, but they continue to progress. Now, I mentioned that the U.S. was founded with 5 agencies. We have 430 agencies at present. And how many do you think are working every single day to make your life better? Do you think you could do things better with your own money than, say, I don't know, fund hundreds of government agencies that you're not familiar with? And so you start taking a look at what's going on here. Obviously Trump, obviously Musk, potentially big balls feel that way too. And so every single day, what we see is Team Doge making their way. And as Musk is doing this, I want to lay a couple things out. Recently, he indicated what is the view of the possible? Well, he'd originally said, you know what, we can cut $2 trillion out of the federal government. More recently, he said, you know what, $500 billion is very realistic. So I'll walk you through a little bit of how we get from here to there, and also a lot of the abuse that takes place with the status quo. I got that for you next. Brian Mudd in for the great one, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin, the voice the liberals want to silence. But you can talk to Mark at 877-381-3811.
Get out of the way. We pay for your job. We pay you.
We're members of Congress.
We pay you.
Nobody has accepted me. Members of Congress.
You are.
We haven't heard that from the secretary. We haven't heard that from the spokesman.
I'm relaying. Oh, you can't make it up. So that was all part of the freak out, the Democrat meltdown, the stunt that they tried to pull. I don't think they were really successful in their endeavor, but the Department of Education, as you had Democrats trying to access the Department of Ed today to pull whatever their stunt was going to be, and they were not allowed in. And Maxine Waters, bless her heart, Maxine Waters, we pay, of all the things that got me today, that one really, we pay you. I don't know at what point you become so deluded. What point you have been in Congress so long where you have never held a job where you weren't taxpayer funded, to where you say, we pay you. That one is classic. Maxine Waters, everybody. No, Maxine, guess what? We, unfortunately, pay you. And then a bunch of the nonsense that goes on the Department of Ed on top of it. It's all very unfortunate. It's talking about Doge and the status quo. I'm going to walk through something here real quick. So Musk, originally said, hey, maybe we can do $2 trillion in cuts. More recently, he said, after a review, a real in-depth review leading up to Doge really getting down to business, he said $500 billion annually should be absolutely doable without it being terribly difficult. And by the way, $500 billion, huge amount of money, right? Guess what? That is only 7% of the federal spend. So you start hearing about these numbers, like even when it was $2 trillion, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, you're still not even heading anywhere near most of the money, right? So one of the goals that Musk laid out, he wanted to reduce wasteful spending by $4 billion per day until he achieved this objective. Now, one of the ways that you start seeing these numbers add up, remember when Musk and Trump ended the DEI office? Well, that immediately saved us $1 billion a year. Did you know that we were spending $1 billion a year from the freaking federal DEI office? So just getting rid of that thing and those government contracts, boom, $1 billion in savings right there. And so you can see how these numbers can add up very quickly. The USAID thing, I mean, the ridiculous billions of dollars that are being spent there all over the place on things like, Peruvian tranny comic book heroes and the like. So all in, by the time Musk is done with Doge, he wants to get to that 30% reduction in the federal workforce, which would amount to about 900,000 fewer federal employees across perhaps, what are we talking about? 450 or 430 federal government agencies. We'd be talking about just over 100 fewer. Even then, you would have, over 300 federal agencies and most that people probably still have not heard of, including members of Congress. Certainly Maxine Waters. So if things had gone according to plan, and we did have a judge that stepped in and is trying to prevent the USAID furloughs that are going to hit at midnight, and you also have the other judge who is trying to delay the buyouts that we're now going to have a hearing on Monday about the 8-month buyout for federal employees. You start taking a look at that, and that would have been just about 3% or a tenth of the objective that Musk had in mind. So you can see how he's starting to make some super quick progress here against the bureaucracy. Now, when you take a look at where the elimination is coming, you've had the return to office mandate in the federal government, right? Now, there's a reason for it, and it's something that is completely consistent, by the way, with what Musk did in his own companies, right? He took over Twitter, he turned it into X, he laid off 80% of the people, made a better product, and forced them to return to the office, then moved the office to a better state. Tesla, ditto. He ended up doing the same thing. You've seen this play out all across, tech companies. Almost all tech companies now have a office mandate in place. And the reason is we have a lot of research on this. Some work is naturally going to be remote work. And the federal government, they call it telework because this is still like, 1960s, probably Bell South or something they're working with that. But yeah, it's all telework rather than remote work. And as you take a look at the reasons for this, I should take a step back. What percentage of full-time remote workers have another job? What percentage of full-time remote workers have another job? Got a number in mind? I started to let it out. 69%. 69% have another job of some sort. Okay. What percentage of remote workers have another full-time job, have two full-time jobs? The number? 37%. Now, here's the thing. Some people really are that productive. Some people really are machines. They can make it work. Some people are self-starters. They're responsible. They thrive in a remote environment. And yes, you have people that also do take advantage of the model by not working as long or as hard or on that second job. But one thing that we have learned, and this is the reason why you have seen this ordered all throughout corporate America, that people come back to the office that, are not in a position to where they need to be remotely working. Yet a 5-year Stanford study took a look at the entire practice just preceding the pandemic, all through the pandemic, until fairly recently. What do you think the net effect is of remote work? The level of productivity you get. And what they found is the average remote worker is 10% less productive than somebody who's in the office. Okay. And 10% productivity is an awfully big deal, especially when you start talking about the trillions of dollars that we spend in federal government agencies, right? So that's the kind of epicenter of this. Now, you have 32% of federal workers that either work in an office or within a job that requires being in the field. You know, like some people, they need to be outside of an office to do the job they do, obviously. So if you factor all those in, not even a third. 54% work in a hybrid model. You have 14% of federal government employees that have literally never reported to an office. And these are commonly people who are hired under remote work models within the past 5 years, during and after COVID. So the 14% right there, I mean, that can be a pretty easy thing to take a look at, playing the averages. But again, we have fewer than a third of all federal employees that are working in the most efficient method. And so there are so many different ways, as you have somebody like Elon Musk, who knows how to right-size companies, build companies from scratch, knows how to, take a look at efficiency and understands economics and put all these pieces together. Every angle you take a look at, there are opportunities for enormous savings. And on that note, I do believe we actually have somebody who's probably not so happy with this line of conversation. We do have Adam, who I believe is a remote worker in the federal government. Adam, welcome to the show.
Hi, Brian. So you're a man of logic and facts and stuff, so I'd like to explain this to you. So I'm a remote worker for the patent office. I'm not sure if you're familiar with our office, but our agency is the only agency that does not serve the taxpayer. We are established by the Constitution, and we are totally fee-funded. We also serve the big corporations, big oil, big pharma. All these big corporations around the world file for patents. So our agency is the only one that, it is totally taxpayer-free. So also, with that note, our agency is also the only one that is performance-based, meaning we have these metrics that we have to meet every quarter, or we risk getting put on a write-up. So every quarter, we have to process a certain amount of patent applications, and we also have another metric that says that you have to process them in a timely manner. So you need to meet a production quota, and you need to meet a time quota. So it is the only agency in the federal government that will fire anybody. It abuses the first year probationary period, because if you can't hack it, they just fire you. So with that note, nobody wants this job because it's very monotonous and boring, and it doesn't pay anywhere near as much as an IP attorney in the private sector that make like $200,000 to $300,000 a year. So the only thing attractive about this job was the ability to telework full time in order to attract people with engineering degrees, science degrees, where they could make more money in the private sector. So they wanted a work-life balance. So in 1997, they started teleworking in this office because every patent became digitized, and we have a database where we are able to search for patents and perform the job. The backlog of applications is at an all-time high because we can't retain people because the job is so stressful and it's so difficult to do, and the pay is nowhere near where it needs to be in order to attract these people. Without the patent office, without enough patent examiners, you can't stimulate the economy. And if there's no patents, there's no economy, there's no innovation. The backlog is already at the highest.
Adam, this is a great call. Well done. B, I hear your frustration. And I guess my question for you is, where's the beef here? Because there's nobody that is questioning your agency, your situation. By the way, your logic-based case right there really adds up. I would think somebody like Elon Musk and Team Doge would recognize those types of challenges, especially since Elon also works in companies that require highly specialized talents and often can have a hard time finding them. Hence why he wants to keep certain visas in place so he can keep a certain inflow of talent into his companies.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello? Oh, okay. I'll just check it to see. So, yes, I hear what you're saying, but Elon Musk has not recognized the patent office. I don't think anybody higher up recognizes the stressful environment of the patent office.
So what is it that you want? I mean, because you're upset, but what is it that you want to see happen here? Or what is it that you have a problem with that is currently happening relative to what wasn't happening prior to January 20th?
Okay, the return to office mandate. If you force every single patent examiner that is located around the entire country into offices where, it's not going to be the proper environment, because they gotta uproot their whole family and move back to DC or any of these satellite offices. You really think they're going to stay for that? You really think that's going to cause more people to apply for the patent office when they're being treated like that?
It's a fair and a reasonable conversation. Based upon your level of passion, I don't have any doubt that you are doing a good job at your job. I bet you are one of the self-starters that gets the job done the way that it should. And you probably have some other colleagues that are that way too. I can't speak for the entirety of the agency. I can just speak to the broad averages. One of the things that's really important to note is that you have all of this stuff that is examined constantly. You talk about the private sector. I mean, yeah, the patent office is important for the private sector. Take a look at really talented people at companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta. They've all laid people off this year. And a lot of it is under certain similar circumstances. A lot of people got laid off through remote work models. I can't speak to the patent office specifically. That's something Elon and Team Doge need to go through. But again, the broad averages do suggest that if you can do the work in an office or, remotely, that on average, people are going to be 10% less productive when they do it remotely. And again, a lot of that has to do with people that are working other jobs, given the opportunity to do so. So I appreciate the call, and I do wish you well, and I hear you, and I understand. I'm Brian Mudd, in for the great one.
Mark Levin.
The difference is, as a player, you're really prepared for one side of the ball. As a broadcaster, you have to prepare for both offenses, both defenses. There's a lot of things that you have on your sheet that you really want to get to, but the reality is, and even for this being a long game, I can't even get to all.
There you go. Tom Brady, Fox and Friends this morning, talking about the difference between playing and being an analyst and all the things you got to know to be an analyst, as he'll be covering the Super Bowl on Sunday. And you'll be glad to know that we've ended racism. If you didn't hear, the NFL has finally decided they are not going to put the end racism message that has been in the one of the end zones in recent years. They're going to, it's going to be a message about love. So we've moved on from, we've ended racism. I think it's because we elected Trump. We ended racism when we elected Trump. And now, we're going to have love. That happens at one of the end zones. And I think that's appropriate anyway, because, the most exciting thing about the Super Bowl to me, Trump. Now, here's going to be the interesting thing about this. First president to ever attend the Super Bowl. How incredibly loud that place will be. In fact, there's probably a line for this somewhere. Over under that Trump gets the loudest applause of any person, anything that happens during the course of the Super Bowl on Sunday. But will the NFL will Roger Goodell and all of his, DEI buddies, will they try to limit that moment or not allow for that moment? Will it have to be some kind of an organic thing? And then you've also got Taylor Swift that's going to be there with Travis Kelce. Over under that the two of them end up, in close proximity. That would be fun. Do pan to Taylor Swift, get the stadium response. Pan to Donald Trump, get the stadium response. Any questions? That's a good Super Bowl Sunday right there. Yeah, best thing about the Super Bowl, Donald Trump. Have a great one. Life, Liberty, Levin tomorrow. He's got Netanyahu for the whole show, 8 o'clock Eastern.